So, please give a very warm welcome to Francois Girard. Okay, so just to get the ball rolling, well, first of all, we're going to take questions, obviously, but because of the size of the room, it would be helpful if those who have a question in mind could maybe come to the front area here, and then we'll have a mic. It'll make it much easier for you to be heard. So while you're collecting your thoughts, maybe I can just get the conversation going by asking a little bit about the American Boychoir, a little bit how you discovered them and how you came into this project.
The whole journey starts with Ben Ripley, the writer, who grew up right next to the American Boychoir School in Princeton, New Jersey. And I remember the first meeting I took with them, looking at the script, like they were so impressed with the details, like how true and how detailed were the facts of the school, that they went into their files and trying to find if Ben Ripley was ever a student, but he was not. He was a friend of someone who was a student, and he was well informed through his teenage of what was happening at the school. And then Ben, you might know Ben from Source Code. He became a well-known Hollywood writer, but this is the first script he wrote as he came out of literary school. And it was just it took that long for the script to see the screen. And so this is how how it started and what brought me to the school. And I discovered a little bit like you're doing now probably what is the essence of that school and the kind of great education they're giving. And I've also discovered their struggle. They're in a terrible, even this year, like a number of times there was crisis where I even thought that the school might disappear before the film opens. Now luckily it's going much better, but they're facing the what culture faces in America, but also they're competing with overnight stars made by TV programs. So now the youngsters are less eager to commit to 2 or 3 years of training, and we all hope that the film will give them a little help in their exposure. Do you have another question?
It's hard for us to see up in the balcony, but I understand there's a boy choir or two. Could we just have a show of hands if you're actually in a boy choir? We can see you much better up there now. And a girl choir too? Okay, I see. There you are, great. So, how did you get all these great actors in the film? I mean, does Dustin Hoffman have an interest in music, or how did that work?
Well, there's a strange circumstance with Dustin because, well, first of all, Dustin and I we go down 10 years, we had a couple of projects that we pursued and didn't happen, so I was quite frustrated with that. And Boychoir is my revenge over those events. But then when I was presented the script, I'm told that Dustin is interested. And I thought, wow, okay, perfect, excellent. So that was part of my interest. The script I really liked, and Dustin being around it was a big draw for me. And I think I was abroad, and then the producers took a first meeting with Dustin, and they realized that Dustin wanted to direct it, not act in it. So then it became a little awkward, but Dustin remembered, we sort of stayed friends from the first collaboration, and Dustin said, okay, fine, I'll meet Francois, and then we started there. And he wanted, I remember the first meeting, he wanted me to, he said, why should I play this part? I don't, why should it be me? And I thought that, I don't know if you will agree, but I thought that this Carvel character as being, such a harsh, cold bastard, that if you don't have a lovable actor like Dustin, then you just see the bastard. But if you have Dustin Hoffman playing the tough guy, you keep wondering why why is he so tough, and that why is for me the narrative drive of the film.
And what about the young lead? Did you have a huge audition? Is he in the American Boy Choir? What's his story?
Well, I've been asked the questions many times, how is it to work with young actors? People presume that it's more difficult, and it's not. Like these young actors that you see on the screen, like Garrett Waring playing Stead, but Joe West playing Devon, and River Alexander, they all really well accomplished young professionals. Like surprisingly, like they've all done their side trainings beside their schools. And what is very difficult in the case of a lead like Stead, Garrett Waring, is to find them, because they haven't done nothing that you can see. Like so you have. In the case of Stead, like the casting director Cham Babsadira and his team, they've reached out to about 1,000 kids. We started thinking like my first idea was that we should find among the community of singers, we should find those who can act, and then that led nowhere. I was sort of successful once with Red Violin with that approach, and this time it didn't work. And then we kept reaching out to all sort of performers, but they've taped like 1,000 boys, and I've seen maybe 250, and then it was really difficult. And eventually, like once you find the one that you think who can play the part, then you have to go through the steps of, you don't bring Dustin Hoffman to a screen test or to an audition. There's like 50 years of cinema behind him to prove what he can do. So you just walk to the set. In the case of Stead, the kid was promising, first meeting, second audition. Then we brought him in, put him in costumes, did screen test, second screen test, and you want to make sure that he can carry the movie, otherwise you're in trouble. And so that's the difficult part. Like other than that, I think the kids were sometimes easier to direct than adult actors.
Good. You have a question, please.
I'm a choral musician, and very pleased with seeing what you've done. My son Samuel actually was in the American Boy Choir and on the set with you, and it was a treat to be able to hear as you were doing things. And the part of the film that I appreciate the most is your part that it changes lives, because the music really does. What inspired you to have the choir do the whole soundtrack? Because that's a beautiful, beautiful thing that you've put in there from a choral musician's point of view.
Yeah, well, I'm familiar with music projects, and I'm familiar with choir music. I'm directing operas, and often, like when I've done Parsifal at the Met, and like it's 5 years of suffering, and sometimes you wonder why you're doing it. Like, and then the pay is bad, like, and the work is like super intense, and then comes the choir rehearsal, where you walk among them, and that is for me the ultimate payday at the opera. And in here, like, so I was familiar with choir music, but I was not familiar with boy choir. So my first, after committing to the project, I grabbed every single record that the American Boy Choir had done, and there's also other great choirs in this country, the Chicago Young Choir, and then you have the Vienna Boy Choir, you have the English tradition. So like I've listened to as much as I could, and to discover that there's something very special in the boy choir. It sort of has a reach that other choirs don't have, adult choirs don't have, and other music. So there's a purity in the soul of those kids, like that touches the heart, like to the point where I'm. If I had to work and listen to music, like I can only do it for so long, because I would get a little too emotional. After a couple of hours, I would have to stop. And I always thought and hoped that the film would be carried by that emotional stream. And so we invested a lot. But like Fernando Malvar, You see, actually, James Litton, for those who are familiar with this group, like James Litton is in the movie. He's the one who made the greatness of the American Boychoir school tradition. Fernando Malvar is became like a brother. Like we worked 15 months together to create this soundtrack. And Tim Martin, who's the Tanglewood a music producer, the producer in here with me. So we use the kids, we use their core strength to feed the music.
You have a question, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would say that I really enjoyed the way you told the story visually as a director. And second of all, is about the relation that you would have as a director with the lead actors. So Dustin Hoffman comes on set, he's done his work when it comes to the script. He's made his choices as how he sees the characters and how he's going to play it. So when you take the first take and you want to come and try to maybe try something else, how do you actually say that to Dustin Hoffman?
Well, it rarely presents itself like that. First of all, in the case of Dustin, we had we spent quite a bit of time prior to prep. We would go through the script, make our notes, discuss it, see what we think. So there's no big surprise on set. And then there's a prep, Yuna Kwak was here, who's designed the costumes, would work with him, put him in character. And he walks on set, we pretty much know what will happen, but then there's a set factor. We had one thing we did, it's the first time I make a movie that I didn't write, and I really enjoyed it. Because when the actors wanted to change the lines, I didn't feel so defensive. Come on, let's change it. So we kept changing the lines. And Ben was very happy about it. But I had more of an audience point of view, being only directing. I sort of enjoyed that perspective, the distance, and then it was. Really, whenever something didn't feel like that I wouldn't buy, we would just sit down and rewrite. And we kept rewriting. And also, I would invite them to improvise. If you remember in the film, the Hildegard when Eddie Izzard goes on the Hildegard von Bingen, when he goes crazy, and the other, Kevin McHale. So all of those scenes were actually improvised, adding up either before or after the dialogue that's written. And my work is not so much to impose a vision on what the actor is doing, it's more to open a space for them to create. And then I think in the case of Dustin, we were all watching very closely what would come up at every take. He's changing a lot from take to take. It's always searching. And
so his stillness and everything that he does, movement, speaking, very subtle, is all from him. Nothing came to maybe you do that.
It's the two of us. Dustin was very, very receptive on notes and very receptive, and I would tell him if I, sometimes it's really hard for an actor to be the character at all times. So the main work of a very useful note for an actor is when you see. If I go to him and say I see Dustin, I don't see Carvel. He would get out of Dustin, of Carvel at times, either because you're tired or because you just lost track of what's happening. But it's a collaboration, of course, and among the actors, they influence one another. They don't know when he's sitting with Kathy Bates. He doesn't know exactly what Kathy's going to do, and then suddenly they run the dialogue for the first time, and they adapt to each other, and that's the monster wakes up. It's not the will of one person. It's what happens in the room at that moment.
Mr. Gerard, my name is Mark Leonard. I'm a graduate of the American Boychoir, 50. And I was there in May for my 50th reunion. And this is Samuel, who was actually in the film.
Hello.
Graduated.
So nice to see you.
Yeah, nice to see you too. I was just wondering, I heard that the rest of the Boychoir got to see the film earlier at the school. If you were there, did you see what their reaction was to it? All the other boys?
No, I wasn't there, but I was Christy wrote a long text reporting on that, but I wasn't there. We were in Toronto. They saw it at the same time we screened it, premiered in Toronto at the Toronto Festival. So what? But you're in the movie. Tell us what what you think.
Well, I can't say it'd be a profession I'd go into, but because it was a really good experience though, just to see how all those things worked. And I remember Dustin Hoffman telling me that the first thing you think after you see a movie you've been in is how short it is, and I think I thought this movie was pretty short because I can't remember, but I think that Dustin Hoffman was saying that every second in the film, I think he was saying it takes, it was like 10 minutes at least. It was amazing how much hard work it takes to do every second.
I can tell because you were a newcomer to the film experience, and then for whoever's been on set, except for me and a few others, everybody's waiting. It's the art of waiting and waiting and waiting. And these young gentlemen showed up they're not used to waits. They have rehearsals and they go fast from cue to cue to cue. They're busy. They show on set and then suddenly you have to keep 40 young men waiting, and you've been extremely disciplined and patient. But maybe I want to talk about one thing that happens at the very end of before the Riverside concert, before the Messiah concert. Dustin gives a speech, and that speech was written. It was about Handel, in the script. It was Carvel telling the young singers about Handel and what Handel had to go through, and it was a misery at the end of his career when he was poor and sick in London and la 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 la. And I kept thinking, this is not about Handel. This is Dustin, we got to do something else. But I was super busy. We were at the end of the shoot, and Dustin worked on it. We were on the phone with Ben, and that speech that Dustin actually wrote a version of that speech and then went into an improvisation. What's on the screen right now is Carvel talking to his choir, but it's Dustin Hoffman. It's actually it's the very last scene we shot. We shot a little thing after that, but it's the last day. It's late in the day. Dustin is there, and he goes on a text that none of us knew, especially that it was improvised. And it's basically Dustin Hoffman saying goodbye to the kids that we've been living with them. And there was not one single person on set, starting with me, who didn't cry. You know, kept kicking me in the ribs. You're the director, you can't cry. So I tried to hold it back, but you remember that moment. That was I'm not sure you're going to remember it for a long, long time.
Is it true Hoffman actually played the Rachmaninoff?
Sorry?
Is it true that Hoffman had played the Rachmaninoff?
Yes, it is Dustin Hoffman playing the Rachmaninoff. I was with him at his country home, and I said, we started working on another piece, and it wasn't going so well. And Dustin plays anything you like to play. And then he played this Rachmaninoff, and I said, that's it. So we're gonna do that. But it is him playing, yes.
I just want to have one thing to say about I got from this film. There's a line that was said that the American Boy Choir was not a career, it was a life. And the life that
it's a life we give them, not a career.
Yes, and so much, my world is so rich because of that school. I did opening of Lincoln Center with Mahler's Eighth, and did a movie on Handel called The Cry for Angels. Anyway, yeah. It was a great life that was given to me by the school, including making a movie, Cry for Angels, on Handel. But it's a larger world of music that nourishes the soul, and it's brought me through wonderful crises in my life. And I urge every parent here who has a child that has the slightest inclination to be able to sing, to enroll them into a school of singing, or a choir, because it'll be with them for the rest of their lives. Thank you, and thank you so much for doing this film.
Wow, that was a superb movie. We heard about how Dustin got involved in the film and also the character of Stet. How did you go about casting Kathy Bates and Eddie Izzard?
Yeah, well, it's always a different. We started with Dustin, and then Kathy Bates came a little later, and I was. The thing is that in the case of her part, or even Eddie, or even Kevin, like they're not on the page. They're not like exactly star vacuos. Like they're small parts. They've grown them into something that I believe now are real fleshy characters, but. It's always tricky to go to Kathy Bates and like you almost have to apologize and say, would you consider and she was extremely generous. She came on board and she known my work before and she was very generous in her comments. But I do believe that yeah, some of them like were maybe thinking I was okay, but they like Dustin was a big draw. Dustin was a big draw. Like people want to work with Dustin. People walked out of their trailers. They like until they realized how collaborative and cancel he is. Like they sort of trembling a little bit. And there's always a tension. Like the first scene with Dustin, everybody's always impressed. And Dustin would never play that. Is a true player. But even for me, like even if we've known each other for that long, I always thought he was so like generous with me. I thought, man, like after 2 days he'll realize I'm a fraud, and then that apparently didn't happen. We're still good friends, but we Dustin carries with him I think he elevates anyone who comes around because you look at the list of directors that Dustin worked with, and you. You better not think too much about it. And but the other actors, they show up and they want to play with him, but he sets a standard. I think he sets the bar, and even to the end, like Dustin would be super dedicated and implicated. We would have after picture lock, I would go back to the editing room. We would have talks. We would try things. François, did you try that? Like, can you send me the material of this? Okay, fine. I said so. He, right to the end, like he was right there trying to make this movie as good as he could, and I believe that he pushed me, he pushed everybody else. And Kathy, it's almost an answer to your question, but I believe Kathy was there also to work with Dustin.
So we should probably wrap things up in a moment because we have another audience coming in, but can we just make sure we know Mongrel Media is releasing the film in Canada quite soon? And then in the States, can you just tell us about the release plan?
Well, the release plans are still unclear because the U.S. sale is still in negotiation. We're about to know who's going to distribute in the States, and once we know who's distributing, we'll have the dates. And Canada normally is synced with the American dates. We think it might be an Easter film. I hope you remember and tell your friends. By Easter. Thank you so much for showing up. Bye-bye. Thanks to the festival. Thanks to Al, and they're doing a great job.
Thank you for being with us, François.